Oh, the year was 2024. How I wish I was in Kherson now. When a letter of marque came down from Kiev to the biggest rust bucket I'd ever seen, through blood and toil. Though the seas may boil, we prowl the ocean for Russian oil. We fired our guns and faced our fears. Now I'm a rich old man on a Mykolaiv pier, the first of Jelvy's privateers. That's a little ditty I wrote back in 2023 when I first had the idea that the way to solve the Russian shadow fleet was to empower merchant vessels for the Republic of Ukraine to, or is it a republic? Or do they just call themselves Ukraine? Yeah, anyways, for the Ukrainian government to empower merchant vessels with letters of marque and reprisal to seize cargoes of the Russian Federation. And of course, I don't know about the legality of that, but even if it's not legal to issue these letters and set up Ukrainian privateers, well, you can always just declare these vessels to be warships of the Ukrainian Navy. We have the example of that, the Germans doing that. But before that, let's address the question of the Shadow Fleet. So, in case you don't know, the Shadow Fleet is a fleet of uninsured, untracked rust buckets, which the Russian Federation has been using to bypass the sanctions and smuggle oil in and out of the country. And they are uninsured because, of the sanctions related to insurance on ships, and they're untracked because they turn off their GPS trackers, and thereby present navigation hazards. And recently, two of these rust buckets sunk in the Kerch Straits, that's the strait between the Sea of Azov and the Black Sea, just flooding the sea with oil, just a oil slick on top of the sea. Very, very pleasant sight to see. And even more recently, one of these rust buckets was implicated in cutting a power and communications cable between Finland and Estonia, I believe. Might have been Finland and Sweden. And when the Finnish police and Finnish Coast Guard seized this ship, and the Russians actually shat their pants when the Finns did that, they found that it was not just smuggling oil, it was also full of spy equipment. So they're treating, I don't know how the Finns are going to legally treat this, because fact of the matter is, this is an act of war, against Finland, a NATO state, and that's probably a warship. Well, anyways, right, this Shadow Fleet is a big problem because it allows the Russian Federation to export oil and bypass sanctions and thereby fund not only its illegal war against Ukraine, but also its subversive activities throughout the globe. So, your favorite right-wing or maybe left-wing influencer, because they also finance the far left, the AFD, Reform UK, Donald Trump, MAGA, these gargoyles, they're probably being financed through money earned by Russia using this Shadow Fleet. So, it would seem imperative to try and stop this. Now, the West, excepting Finland and some other countries, they don't really seem interested in this. So I was thinking, yeah, maybe Ukraine should take matters into its own hands. So anyone out there with a spare ship or naval training, here's the idea. You get a bunch of guys together, you get them the rudiments of drone training, and you arm them, and then you apply to become a warship of the Ukrainian Navy. And the way this could be done is like with the auxiliary cruisers of Germany in the 30s and 40s. We can't use the real name of that state. The auxiliary cruisers were armed merchantmen, fundamentally, but they were crewed by experienced sailors and experienced officers, and their role was to intercept enemy shipping by pretending to be merchantmen, and then revealing, once they've closed the distance, revealing their battle flags and seizing the enemy merchant marines as prizes of war. And these auxiliary cruisers, as they were known, they were wildly successful. There was a lot of bang for the buck for Germany for that one. So, like the most successful one, the Penguin, captured the entire Norwegian whaling fleet for Germany, sent it back to Germany. There was Atlantis, which seized the British battle plans for the defense of Malaya and Singapore, sent them to the Japanese, and the Japanese simply rolled over Malaya and Singapore. And one of these, it wasn't very successful otherwise. I think they called it the Cormoran. But it actually managed to sink an Australian Royal Navy cruiser, the cruiser Sydney, off of Australia. And a cruiser was lost with all hands, whereas the auxiliary cruiser, the Cormoran, a couple of sailors actually survived. So, because the two ships sunk each other, and not bad for an armed merchantman. But this would be, of course, my idea on how to do it. Now, of course, I have to say I don't have a good deal of naval training. I'm a sort of a riverine person myself. But that's one way to skin that particular cat, and I just wanted something light and breezy for the last video of the year 2024. So, Ukrainian government, if you're listening, Ukrainian Navy, if you're listening, any enterprising lads who believe they should be seeking fortune on the high seas through, let's call it privateering, you know? There's a free idea for you. Now all that's left is the very difficult task of implementing it. And since this video is pretty short, let's just close it out by singing some more. Singing from my favorite sea shanty. This time the original version, because I can't remember the lyrics I made up. Oh, on the king's birthday we set to sea. How I wish I was in Sherbrooke now. We were 91 days to Montego Bay, pumping like madmen all the way. God damn them all. I was told we'd cruise the seas for American gold. We'd fire no guns, shed no tears. Now I'm a broken man on a Halifax pier, the last of Barrett's privateers.